sight, a precious gift we can't take for granted. Our eyes are windows to the wonders of the world. All we know and love, experience and discover, ponder and cherish. Let's peer into the workings of the eye, a unique and self-sustaining system. The reflected light of the world enters through the crystal transparency of the cornea, aqueous humor, lens, and vitreous humor to project onto the photoreceptors of the retina, whose impulses converge on the optic nerve, and then to the brain to be transfigured into imagery and imbued with meaning. Continual adjustments to the pupil and lens regulate the entry and focusing of light.
When we look at the outside of the eye, we see the whites of the eye. That's the sclera. That's tough connective tissue. The window into the sclera is the cornea. The space behind the cornea is filled with the aqueous humor. That's the anterior chamber. Directly behind the aqueous humor is the blue version of the eye. That's the iris. The hole in the center of the iris is controllable by size. That's the pupil. So we have the cornea, the aqueous humor filling the anterior chamber, the iris, and the pupil. The middle layer, the middle tunic of the eye, is referred to as the choroid layer. It's highly vascular. You'll see the blood vessels, the choroid. The inner layer of the eye, the peachy colored, is the retina. That's where the rods and cones are located. Directly behind the pupil, we have the clear structure. This is the lens. Focuses light. Behind the lens, we have this clear structure, which represents the vitreous humor. Vitreous humor is what fills the chamber of the eye and gives it its shape. It's what we squeeze out when we do our eyeball dissection. At the back of the eye, we have the optic nerve that runs to the occipital lobe of the brain. Right where the optic nerve plugs into the retina is the blind spot, the optic disc and the blind spot. And then towards the side at the back of the retina is what we call the fovea. The fovea is the area of high concentration in cones. So with the eye inner layer is the retina, middle vascular layer is the choroid, and the outer connective tissue is the sclera. Vitreous humor fills the chamber. The lens focuses the light. We see the blue iris of the eye. The pupil is the hole in the middle, cornea on the outside, and the tough outer connective tissue is the sclera.
The cornea is a clear circular area in the sclera where light enters the eye. The pupil is the circular opening in the front of the choroid. The iris is the colored smooth muscle surrounding the pupil, which adjusts the size of the opening according to the brightness of light. The lens is located behind the pupil and between the anterior and posterior chambers. The lens is a transparent, flexible biconvex structure that bends or refracts light rays, so they focus on the nerve cells of the retina. The chambers are filled with a watery fluid that gives shape to the eye and helps refract the light rays. The anterior fluid is called the aqueous humor, and the posterior fluid is called the vitreous humor. The retina is the inner layer and contains the nerve cells, the rods and cones, and the bipolar cells. Rods are sensitive to light but do not sense color. Cones sense color. The highest concentration of cones is in the fovea centralis. The rods and cones synapse with bipolar cells, which then synapse with the ganglia cells, whose axons form the optic nerve. Light rays enter the eye through the cornea, pupil, and lens, where the light rays are bent or refracted to focus them on the rods and cones, which transmit the stimulus to the optic nerve and then to the occipital lobe of the brain for interpretation.